Hello, welcome to a special program we have for you today as we count down to Election Day. Believe it or not, it's hard to think elections in the middle of summer, but that's what the state of Wisconsin decided to go to a few years ago when we moved our primary from September to August. Now, we're not the earliest, but we're certainly not the latest either. But there is a primary election coming up, and it is August 11th is the date that you want to keep in mind as we talk to some of the candidates that are running for some of our local races. I'm your co-host, Mike Warren from WDLB Radio, Chris Leonard, editor from Hub City Times, also with me on the program here today as we talk to one of the candidates running for state assembly in the 69th Assembly District. She is Donna Rozar from Marshfield, no stranger to politics. Donna, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike.
Been around
nice to see you.
Yes, been around for a while. A longtime member of the Wood County Board, a longtime nurse educator. We're going to get into a lot of this stuff as our program goes on. First of all, maybe just give us some of that background. The last time we talked, I think your resume may have changed a little bit here. So update us on what you've been up to and a little bit about yourself and your background before we get into the issues of the day in terms of the actual campaign.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to do so, and thank you all for being here today. So for people who have not lived in Marshfield as long as we have, I moved here with my 5 adopted children and my husband in the 1980s. Within 6 months of us living here, my husband was diagnosed with HIV infection. We found out that he'd been infected in the operating room during his cardiothoracic fellowship. Well, actually his residency, not his fellowship. And so that put an end to his cardiac surgery career, and he ended up dying of complications of HIV infection in the 90s. I had 5 adopted children under 10 at the time, and so I spent the next few years kind of in politics a little bit, getting involved, and then when my youngest was ready to graduate from high school, I went back to nursing. I had not nursed for about 20 years, although I say I took care of a dying husband and 5 children, and that's kind of nursing. But in 2002, I decided to go back and be a clinical nurse and work at the bedside. In 2003, Kevin Shabilsky left his state Senate seat, and there was an open seat. I ended up running as the Republican candidate because I won a Republican primary that year. There were 4 people in that Republican primary, lost to Julie Lassa in the general election in 2003. So because of my interest in government, I ran for the county board in 2000. Gordy Stargart was retiring at the time, and he asked me if I was interested in running. I was. I ran unopposed that very first term. So 2000 was my first time of being elected on the county board, and I've been reelected every 2 years since then. Some with primary opposition and some with not primary opposition. I've enjoyed county government, thought I would never run for state office again. And in November, an individual called me and asked me if I was interested in running because it was going to be an open seat. So I thought about it for a while, talked to some key people who I knew would be supportive, and in December I called and said I would. Between those times, I decided to get a master's degree. When Ed and I were first married, I was in a master's PhD program at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And then Ed decided to go back and be a cardiac surgeon. So we left general surgical practice, and then we adopted our first child. And 10 hours shy of my master's degree in 1980, that would have been 1982 because Jonathan Edward was born in 1983. We uprooted ourselves from Athens, Tennessee, moved to Dallas, Texas for a year where Ed did a cardiothoracic fellowship. We had a new little adopted baby that was delivered by an OBGYN friend of his from medical school. And I just thought I would be a mother and a cardiac surgeon's wife for the rest of my life. And so I dropped out of school. Then when Ed got sick and died, and it was always always a goal of mine to have a master's degree. So one of the nurses at the hospital was going to Viterbo one day a week to get a master's degree. And I said, Suzanne, do you mind if I ride along with you? Well, you can imagine how people felt about this older lady being in a master's program. I did finish that master's degree in 2008 and started teaching nursing students. I taught for a while for Marian University College of Nursing in Fond du Lac, and then got hired at UW-Eau Claire College of Nursing here at our satellite campus. Continued to work as a cardiac medical surgical nurse casually on 3 North because I had started working there in 2002, and have continued to work. I retired from academic professorship in May of this year, and so I've loved lifelong learning. I still work as a nurse occasionally, helping up on 3 North, and just have had a really full life. I remember when Ed got sick, we hadn't been here too long, and it was kind of like, boy, what do I do now? I've got these 5 kids under 10. Do I move back south? Do I stay up here? Well, I kind of liked it up here. Our church had been very helpful when Ed was sick, and I just felt like I had family. My family's not real close. Ed's family wasn't real close, and so the decision was made to stay. I've always bloomed where I've been planted. It didn't matter where I was, and I just have had a wonderfully productive contributory life here in central Wisconsin. And now this opportunity has come up, and so with my previous experience, my experience on county board in leadership positions, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, about why that qualifies me to go to Madison and represent the constituents of the 69th Assembly District. But that's kind of what I've been doing. So
been keeping yourself busy. So
and productive.
And productive.
Yeah.
So what got you back in? You mentioned you ran for that in the one state race.
Mm-hmm.
And then county government for all those years. What got you back into politics on the state level? Were there particular issues that got you, that finally you decided, I'm just going to go back into this side of it and take a run at a state assembly seat?
There are a couple of reasons for that, Mike. Number one, somebody asked me to run. And that individual that asked me to run said, Donna, you've got a unique set of work-life experiences that makes you well qualified to represent this district in Madison. I think the second thing is that as a county board supervisor, you know, county government's the arm of the state. We don't do anything without the state's permission. So I have intimately been involved for these past 20 years on how funding and policy affects local municipalities. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wisconsin Counties Association magazine. Comes out every month. You should get a master's degree in public policy after reading that magazine for 20 years. So I have a wonderful knowledge base in county government because Wisconsin Counties Association is obviously the lobbying organization for county governments. I've also been chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. So I've been involved in foster care, out-of-home placement, mental health issues that we deal with. We own a nursing home in Port Edwards, Edgewater Haven. We have Norwood Health Center here that meets the needs of chronically mentally ill people, acutely mentally ill people in our admissions unit. And so we have a nursing home in that facility. I've learned a lot about government because of my involvement. The individual that called me to seek my interest in whether I was interested in running or not said, you know, state assembly is nothing but county board on steroids. And you kind of operate on steroids pretty much. And so you're a perfect fit for that. But this individual was very complimentary of my leadership positions at the county level, what I've been able to get done as chair of the Health and Human Services. I'm a mover and a shaker. I'm also a worker. When the Speaker of the State Assembly came up to meet with me, I said, I'm a worker bee. You know, I get down there. I don't care who gets the spotlight. I want to work for the constituents of my district and then overall for the constituents in the state. And I think this individual has seen me as a worker bee over all these years, industrious, energetic, passionate, passionate about the issues, able to articulate and bring people to a consensus about what we need to do. I've never been shy, as you know, to stand up on the county board and disagree with people and state my opinions. And so I think this individual saw those attributes and thought, I think they'd be pretty good for the constituents of the 69th Assembly District. So that's probably a very long answer to your question. I apologize.
I knew the county board was in for a treat when one of your early meetings, I was there covering it, and you stood up and asked about some spending bill or what is this receipt for $18 and some cents or something, and somebody said, well, we had to gas up a lawnmower or something. It was some kind of minor issue, but you were looking at every line item in the
and I'm a fiscal
budget.
Conservative in my life, and I'm a fiscal conservative with taxpayer dollars. Now, one thing that we did do is we implemented credit cards in departments so that you're not sending an $18 check to somebody. We're combining those. And that was a good thing that we implemented in some of our departments to prevent some of that. But they still itemize what they pay.
Well, that way they just get fewer questions from Donna every month. And they know they got rid of her for a couple of questions. We got a couple questions, though. Chris Leonard from Hub City Times is with us on the program, and she's got a few questions for Donna. Chris?
So you announced in April that
I
you'd be
did.
running for
After the county board election. I didn't want to confuse people about what they were voting for me for, so I waited.
So what was it like campaigning? This is in the middle of Safer at Home. And
I know. It's been a real challenge, Chris. I'm a people person. So to not do the Dairy Fest parade, to not get out at Dairy Fest breakfasts and things like that, that's the way people get their names out. Now, I agree with you. I've been working on my name identification for 30 years. So I haven't had the challenge that maybe other candidates with not as much name ID have had. I went right out and started collecting my signatures for state assembly after April 15th. I had some people that just had me lay my signature clipboard on the steps. They reached out with their masked and gloved hands, took the signature page in, signed it, and then laid it back down, and I went and picked it up. I had some people that did that. One thing I did do, Chris, when I was collecting signatures was I called people before I went. And I said, I need 200 signatures to get on the ballot. Would it be okay if I came by your house? What time would you like me to come by your house? And I literally made appointments with people. And I said, I will be there between 2 and 4. So what I did is I arranged people by sections of the district. And I would call Stratford, and I'd call 25 people that I knew up there. And I'd say, I'd like to come tomorrow afternoon and get signatures. I did not teach on Thursday and Friday of this academic year. So on Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays, it was my job to go out and get signatures. And then I would take signs, and I would try to multitask, okay? People have been very kind at the doors. Some people invited me in. Probably shouldn't say this because we were all supposed to be safer at home. And we would social distance, but people were so starved for attention that I'd go to get their signature and they'd say, oh, come on in, sit over here on this couch. And then we'd visit for 40 minutes. And it was kind of like, I really need to go. I told people I'd be there between 2 and 4. And so it was challenging. I've run before, so I know about Dairy Fest breakfasts and the mayor's breakfast and showing up at all of those things. There just weren't any of those things this time. So it's been more laborious because I've had to knock on people's doors and put literature in. It's been strange because I'm such a people person. Well, I'm sorry, I covered up my microphone. Because I'm such a people person and I enjoy those events. This has been more one-on-one where I've been to houses, I know they're home because I see their light on, but they won't open the door. That's fine. I just put one of my little brochures in their door and they know I've been there to talk to them. I think that's probably the most challenging. I've not worn a mask, and nobody has asked me to wear a mask as I've gone up to doors. I knock on the door, and then I take 3 steps back because I don't want to be in people's faces. But I've done some campaigning at restaurants and sat down and talked to people. But it has been challenging, there's no doubt about it.
So let's stay in the COVID area.
Yep.
And you mentioned masks.
I did.
Portage County is currently in discussions about
Yes.
creating a mandate.
Yes.
You, as with your nursing background and you're chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, what is your stand?
Well, I have to wear a mask at work, and I have to wear an eye shield when I take care of patients. There are no plans to mandate masks in Wood County. It is not on any agenda for discussion. The health department is working on an educational piece, because you have to understand masks are only one tool in the box to protect ourselves. We have coughing etiquette, we have conscientious hand hygiene, we have social distancing, and we have masks. So the health department has agreed with leadership in the county that we are going to take the educational approach and not the mandatory approach. So that approach is going to be coming up with a document to help people understand how to effectively use the tools that are available to keep both themselves and the public safe. If people want to wear masks, businesses have every right to operate their business. If I get my hair cut, finally, I got my hair cut, I wear a mask when I'm in there. And so that's there. If I don't want to wear a mask, I would go to somebody else. And so businesses have the right. I'm all about protecting individual rights. I feel strongly. I was mad when we mandated seatbelts. And I thought, educate me about the reason I should be wearing a seatbelt. And then all of a sudden you get a $5 ticket if you don't wear one. So this nanny state thing has got to stop, and people need to start assuming more personal responsibility for their health. And if people want to stay home, they need to stay home. Masks, in a way, are a little bit of false security, because it appears with the contact tracing we're doing that it's more the social distancing that is beneficial for less than 15 minutes. It seems that people who are close to each other for 15 minutes, whether they have a mask on or not, that seems to be the defining thing. How close are you getting to people, and how long are you? So we should have a 15-minute interview, or I should be sitting over here. They seem to be determining factors. Conscientious hand hygiene, how long have we been preaching for people to wash their hands appropriately? So the health department is working on an educational piece which should be posted soon, and that's the approach that we would like to take in Wood County. Educational and not mandating.
Okay, well, let's get into some of the statewide issues
Yes.
then, since you're running for the state legislature. The charter school, private school voucher issue has been debated for the past number of years now. I was going to say couple, probably more than that.
More than that.
Where do you stand on those issues when it comes to, charter schools, private school vouchers, tuition deductions, things of that nature? Any
I am
thoughts?
supportive of charter schools. I am supportive of school choice. I would even like to see those things expanded. And then I would like some dollars to follow students to those things. Again, goes back to choice. See, I'm a huge choice person. And if we can help meet the needs of people in other settings, whether it's parochial schools, charter schools, we need to do those things at the state level to enable people to do that. I believe that we need to create an environment where people can succeed, okay? I don't think government should be the problem. It should be part of the answer. And so if we can create an environment, whether it's economically, educationally, however it is, to help people succeed, that's what we need to do. I loved nursing students who wanted to succeed. We were willing to work with them, and some struggled. I'm sure that my student would not mind me sharing this because she graduated many years ago, but I taught pharmacology in our nursing program for a number of years. There was a particular student who was really struggling. My pharmacology class was not an easy class, and people had to study to do well in my class. And so she came into the office, and she was obviously having a lot of problems. Her grades were reflecting that struggle. So she said, I need to know what to do. So we talked about, she was working nights, 12-hour nights from 7 at night till 7 in the morning. And then on the days that she should have been studying, she was sleeping. And I said to her, you have got to change your schedule at work. She was working as a CNA at a healthcare facility. She changed, and she was a rock star after that. So I've always been for helping people succeed. If nursing students got in our program, you think we wanted them to fail? No, we wanted them to succeed. I feel the same way about individuals. We need to create an environment for people that allows them to succeed, whether in elementary school, in high school, in secondary school, or in their work environment.
Another statewide issue is, well, transportation is endless. There are always needs, more needs than money, dollars to go around. The debate on how to increase that revenue, it rages on too. Gas tax, everything from that to, tolls, like what we see in Illinois. What the registration fees, do they need to be more? How do we balance a lack of revenue for transportation or the commitment it's given in the state budget every 2 years versus the ongoing needs that exist?
It's a tough one. I remember when Margaret Farrow was lieutenant governor. How many years ago was that? Toll roads were discussed with Margaret Farrow when she was the lieutenant governor. And that was years ago. The thing about it is number one, I would make sure that all money that came in from transportation stayed in a segregated fund. This thing of robbing funds and robbing from Peter to pay Paul is wrong. And we've had that in the past where people have gutted our transportation fund to pay for other things. That can't happen. We've got more energy efficient cars. They get more gas per gallon, so people aren't buying as much fuel. People have talked about wheel taxes. We have to find out what's palatable to the taxpayers. We don't want to do anything draconian. I would not vote for anything draconian. I think registrations went up to $85. I was at this year because I think I paid $85 this year. That money needs to go into transportation and not be touched. I'm all for bonding. Money's never going to get any cheaper than it is now. And I do believe in bonding for infrastructure. When I first got on the county board, I don't know whether you remember, cash was paid for everything. We built those CBRF homes on Apple. They paid cash for those things. I was a huge supporter of bonding for things that future generations took advantage of. And because money was cheap, I think the counties used bonding very wisely. And so we've bonded for transportation money in Wood County. I am not opposed to bonding for transportation, but we've got to come up with a good revenue stream that's going to be sustainable for fix. I mean, we got some roads that are pathetic. Not only are they pathetic, they're dangerous. And when you can't move goods and people safely through your transportation infrastructure, you have problems getting people and goods to market. So I don't have a magic bullet, but I would love to participate in the discussion and then be pretty adamant about making sure that money stayed in a segregated fund so that we have it available for fixes.
Okay. All right. Chris Leonard from Hub City Times, I mentioned, is with us on the program. And Chris, you have some more questions?
You were just elected to another term on the Wood County Board of Supervisors. How does this work if you're elected to the seat?
Well, there is no law that says you cannot serve in two capacities. There have been a lot of state legislators who have all held municipal offices. Scott Suter, we were talking about him a few minutes ago. He was on the Abbotsford City Council for a lot of weeks when for a lot of years when he was a state assembly person. There's nothing that says you can't do it. I think it's going to be a workload issue. Those terms overlap. So when I win this election, I will be sworn in January, and then that term starts then, and I'm already almost a year into my first county board term, because that's also a 2-year. I do not anticipate resigning from the county board, but whether I run for the county board or not for another term will be determined. When the speaker came up, he said that the thing about it is you've got competing interests then. You're advocating for things at the county level, which might be a conflict of interest for what you work on at the state level. So I'm going to have to see how that works. Both of them are supposed to be part-time jobs. Probably won't be able to work casual as a nurse on 3 North, which will break my heart. But they're both supposed to be part-time jobs. Depends on what committee assignments I get. You know, when I'm elected to the state assembly, there's so many variables. Fortunately, Wisconsin Rapids is on the way to Madison, and so if I have to be in Madison, I can go to an 8 o'clock meeting down there and then go on to a 1 o'clock committee meeting. So many variables, Chris. What committees am I going to get appointed to? How is the workload going to be? And the workload's going to be pretty bad because we've got a budget that's going to be tough at the county. Revenue shortfalls I see coming, and 2021 may not be difficult, but 2022 I think is going to be tough. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, we have just a couple minutes left, so I'll let you, bring up any other issues you want. Give us your short answers. We got 3 or 4 minutes here to kind of wrap this up. There are so many issues out
There's
there
so
that we
much
haven't
we could
asked you
talk
specifically about. So I'll just kind of open it up. Give us kind of a statement as
Okay.
we wrap up the interview on any issues that we haven't touched on, and your campaign for assembly here in general.
So I'm pro-life. I want to make sure I get that out. I have already been endorsed by Pro-Life Wisconsin, and there is a endorsement from Wisconsin Right to Life that is forthcoming. I'm a huge Second Amendment proponent, and of course we could talk about that for 30 minutes. I think that the thing I would like to say is I believe I am the most experienced candidate in this slate of officers. I have been a policymaker for all of these years. The Wood County Board is the legislative branch of Wood County. The State Assembly is the lower house of the legislative branch in Madison. I have a huge wealth of knowledge about the issues that are being discussed in Madison, both as a nurse educator, a county board supervisor. I will repeat again, I believe I have unique work-life experiences that make me an excellent candidate for this. I'm out and about. I'm pleased with the reception. People have been very supportive, and I'm very appreciative for that. It would behoove me to say to people, please go to my website, look at the things that I stand for. There's an email address embedded in that. I am willing to talk to people. I got a phone call. I worked on 3 North the other day and got home about 8 o'clock, and there was a phone call on there. I picked up one of your brochures in the laundromat in Neilsville, and I want to know blah, 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 blah. I called that man right back. I want to be a responsive, approachable advocate for the values of the people in the 69th Assembly. And I am so looking forward to assuming that role, and of course would appreciate people's support in going to the polls and voting on August the 11th.
August 11th. And what is that website?
VoteRozar.com.
All right, and you're on Facebook too, right?
I am. That's a blessing and a curse.
Okay, very good. Donna, thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
And good luck on August 11th.
Appreciate it.
And good luck to you on August 11th. Don't forget to vote. That is Election Day, primary Election Day. I know it's a little out of the norm in terms of when we think of elections, we think of spring and, well, winter, April and November, essentially. But there is a summer primary. August 11th is the date. Polls open at 7 o'clock in the morning and close at 8 p.m. So we'll see you at the polls on August 11th. For Chris Leonard and Donna Rozar, I'm Mike Warren. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.